All right. Welcome, Crossroads family. Good to see you this afternoon. And I am here with Jeremy Couture, pastor of Northside Baptist Church, one of our pillar churches in Crossroads. And man, I want you to kind of hear a little bit more about him and his story. So we'll just jump in, but for everybody to get to know you a little bit better, tell us who you are, how long you've been there, maybe just a quick snapshot of the church before you got there.
Yeah, Chris, grateful to be with you today. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm Jeremy Couture, pastor at Northside Baptist Church. Celebrated my fifth anniversary last December, so it's been 5+ years at Northside. It's been a real blessing. My family and I have enjoyed being in the area and being a part of our church family here at Northside. So COVID, right? We moved to Indianapolis and we came to Northside during the pandemic. So nothing was normal. The church was optimistic, but struggling like most churches were with all of the unanswered questions. Uh, they also struggled because they had gone through a sort of a longer term interim. And so I think that was a little bit extra hard on a church with a group of elders, great guys, but without a pastor to kind of help lead the charge. So things were optimistic, but it was a tough season when we first started and arrived.
Sure.
So.
Well, and to give context, I know that, prior to that, that they had actually had a bad situation with a pastor, which had, obviously been devastating to the church. And then the next pastor that came along, provided some stability, but he wasn't there. I mean, it was a few years. So I think he was able to provide that stability. But then, as you said, then it was the long process after that, a long interim. So, what I recall is that the church had gotten to a place of, we want to move forward, but we're just not. We need somebody to come and help us take us to that place. So, when you first came, then what were some of the things that you first noticed, identified about where the church was?
Well, there was a lot of positives. I mean, we found a church family that was very gracious, very caring. I think Northside has been and is and continues to be a very diverse congregation. Um, Diverse in a lot of ways, right? So socioeconomic diversity, a little bit of ethnic diversity thrown in there, but it has been a place where just about anyone could walk in off the street from any walk of life and feel welcome. They can find a way to connect. That's one of the things that really sort of drew us to the church was that kind of an accepting, loving, friendly atmosphere. Um, some of the things we noticed just out of the get-go, in addition to just trying to catch a new vision for life after the pandemic, which at that point we didn't know how long it would still be. So, just put yourself back in that mindset. Some of the big challenges for Northside, the two biggest probably were just a gap in leadership during those transitions. Some good folks moved on to serve in other parts of the kingdom. Transitions are inevitable, and so there was kind of a need for mature leaders to help out and carry the weight. And like many churches, there was really a huge gap in age. Young people, the young demographic was just absent. My wife and I visited Sunday school classes for the first several months that we were there just to get to know the people, but to get a feel for what was happening after we got there. And uh, I mean, it was just immediately obvious we needed to start a new Sunday school class because there was no class for anyone between 18 and 50. I mean, there was just no middle age or young adult classes that were focused on that demographic. So that was a huge gap.
Good. That's good. Well, and and one of the things that I know I would love for our churches to hear is that as we've explained this, that again, Northside Pillar Church, historically strong church
Yeah.
in the association, had hit some, big potholes, if you will, along the way, and things that could have taken any church in a bad direction. And so there were a lot of things where that turnaround had not happened. And that's the thing that I want them to hear is that as you came along, that you've been seeing exactly those things take place. Now, at some point, you had to figure out, like, okay, well, what is the path going forward? How did that begin to take shape? So you were visiting some classes, seeing some of the gaps, trying to notice those things. What was when we think like, okay, here's where we need to go?
Well, there were some easy places to start, some low-hanging fruit, if you will. Starting a new small group is a relatively easy place to start. And so my wife stepped in and said, "Hey, we're starting a new class." And as some middle-aged and young adult families would filter in occasionally, that became an easy connection point where that demographic began to fill out. Um, we really tried to champion our children's leaders and our youth leaders, just highlighting those ministries, just talking about any little celebration that we could come up with, even if it was just, might seem insignificant. We really tried to try to make the most of any sort of momentum that was happening in that area.
Mm.
Um, we uh, uh, we spent a good bit of time as a church congregation meeting and talking about um, just a new vision and mission and direction. So we talked a lot about all those strategic planning sorts of things. But we did that. I chose to do that with our church on a series of Wednesday nights.
Okay.
We weren't meeting at that point on Wednesday, but I just said, "Hey, we're going to take these." I threw like 8 or 9 dates on a calendar and I said, everybody come out. And I came prepared to kind of cast some ideas out there and give some direction. We did a lot of, conversations around the table and let them talk about different issues. So we really came out of that in the first year with I'll say the ink was still wet, but we had kind of a new mission and a newish vision, and we sort of said, hey, we're really going to try to be about discipleship and evangelism, and those aren't new ideas, but what does it look like for us to get serious about that? And the church, because they were invited to be a part of the conversation and
Good.
invited to kind of speak what are the words that resonate with you? What are the concepts that are important to you? I think that was a real helpful first step. Now we've refined that since then and we've gone further, but that was a kind of get your engines revving and get us moving in the right direction.
That's good. Well,
So
and I think how critically important for them to be a part of it, and then to begin to speak the language, even though you might not be there yet, but to act as if that you're heading in that way.
yeah, I think it was important for the church to kind of embrace and be a part of the future. I mean, I had ideas, and I was the first one to kind of speak about those things, but I really wanted to make some space where we could do it together. We can have some
Mhm.
sense of fellowship and feedback. We had a lot of business meetings, members meetings in that season. We've since kind of shortened our um, schedule so we don't meet as often, but we met more often in those times to give people a chance to kind of work through some of those foundational issues that we needed to do.
That's
So,
good. Well, and two, I think that along the way, I mean, what's been exciting for me is to actually see see the results of these things and how, that people are getting a sense of energy and excitement. And part of that too has been that you've had some key guys that you brought on staff.
Sure.
Yeah. So I know that, I mean, both Alex and Jared have been, just great, great additions. And you guys were in, position to be able to do that, but that those key leaders, incredibly important.
Yeah, they've helped to set the tone and lead out in uh, important parts of our church ministry. Obviously, worship ministry uh, is very visible. People really either they really resonate with the church's worship ministry or they don't. And so we had to have some important conversations around who we had been and who we were and who we wanted to become in that
Mm,
area. So we made some changes in that arena. Um, you know, family ministry, children's ministry, and especially youth ministry. We had some important decisions that we had to make a couple years ago to honestly to even bring Jared on board was a huge step of faith.
mm,
But the church saw the possibility. They acknowledged kind of the gap, and they were willing to jump through that in faith. I'm grateful that we did because it helped us to kind of lean into an area of ministry that we desperately needed.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's yeah, the now if you're beginning to, again, seeing that momentum and that kind of stuff. If you had to look back, and I know 5 years, I mean, that's, it's not that long, but what are some of the things that you've learned along the way and, both good and bad or hard lessons that maybe you had to learn?
I'm not that old, Chris. I can remember the 5 years ago. Yeah, it's we've made some mistakes and certainly had some successes along the way. Um, I think uh, I think one of the lessons that one of the kind of the assumptions that I had going in is that people would like to be a part of the process. So we tried to make it as collaborative as possible. Um, that means that there have been times when things have gone slower than I wanted them to be. We've taken some detours, but I feel like getting people sort of on board was more important than necessarily getting to the finish line with some
Mm,
of those changes. So that's just sort of part of my approach, and I think that lesson has proved itself to be true.
Well, and
Um,
let me interrupt you because here's one of the things that I would say that, to your credit, is been maybe even one of the keys to success is that I think that you haven't gone, too fast nor too slow. I mean, I come from church planting world, and many times, my fallback, I mean, the way I'm wired is like, okay, let's make this happen right now. And so, and unfortunately, not everybody can do that, and it takes time for people to process and for people to think. And so I think that's one of the things that you've done well is that, you've gone, the extra mile to make sure that they feel a part and that they have a voice in all of that. So I think that's a key lesson to learn here.
Yeah, I've had some mentors wisely, speak into my life. I think one of the things that a leader, a pastor is responsible for is not only change management, but the pace of change. So
Mm,
there are times, it's like driving on the highway where you got to put the pedal down because you got to get up with the flow of traffic or it's going to be dangerous. And there are times when it's wiser to slow down and to be a bit more cautious. So being able to prayerfully
mm,
assess, hey, this is something we've had to make some changes really quickly. And there are some times that we've slowed down and hopefully that's helped everyone to catch up and be a part of it. So I
amen.
think another lesson that I've learned along the way is it's okay to fake it till you make it. I mean, that doesn't sound super.
I
spiritual,
think I've
but
I've seen that in King James somewhere.
yeah, thou shalt. But I mean, there were some I'll say parts of our ministry that had been overlooked or forgotten or de-emphasized. Youth ministry was specifically one of those areas where we just hadn't. Northside, you talked about history, has been a church with a very significant youth ministry in years gone by. In recent past, it had kind of been overlooked for different emphases. And we just felt like we needed to have a strong youth ministry to become more youthful and to reach families with that age group and to kind of regain that demographic that was missing. So, we have and continue to emphasize a ministry, to be honest, that has had ups and downs. But we we put, I'm not ashamed to say it. I mean, we put youthful pictures on our website before we had youth in the seats.
There, yeah.
We did things to put our youth group up on the platform on Sunday morning when we only had three. Like we have three or four kids, but they're visible. And now we have more, but we've tried to highlight some of the areas of ministry that we wanted to see more of. I think that's another sort of people talk about, that people will be invested in what you celebrate. So we tried to celebrate some of those things, even if it wasn't, a significant part of who we are at that point, because it was an aspiration for what we wanted to become. I think our outreach is another area where Northside hasn't always been so great at doing outreach or evangelism. We've had some uh, positive points, and we're still trying to get better at that. But we've really tried to make a lot of a little when it comes to the outreaches that we've had, and take time on Sunday morning to talk about it and celebrate it and give people a chance to see the pictures and get invested in that. So I think, yeah, sometimes you fake it till you make it, even if it's not all the way together. It helps people to kind of catch the vision for what could be. So,
No doubt. Yeah, and and I think that celebrating things it's critically important. I think that that's exactly what we see from Scripture. When Paul and Barnabas, when they would go and then they would come back and they would share that's all part of the critical thing of saying, "Hey, listen, this is some good things are happening." And sometimes I know for me is that you of course you want it all to happen as right now. But if we can just get the 1%, 1% better every time, learn the lessons, and not try to, we're not trying to hit the home run every time, man. You just need a base hit. You just need, you just need a bunt or something. But yeah, so, and I think that, you guys are doing that really well. It's exciting. So what are you seeing right now that you excites you about, what God is doing?
um, there's a lot of stuff. I'm so grateful for where we've come, and I think our people think the next 5 years and beyond will be just as good, and if the Lord wills, even better. We've continued to see a growth in diversity, particularly in like ethnic diversity, kind of like in our neighborhood or our part of the city. So we've leaned into that. We've invested in some translation software so that we had families coming in with different generations represented, and grandma and grandpa, our mom and dad couldn't engage in our worship service because they didn't speak English the same way or the same level that their kids or grandkids did. So we've got folks in our congregation who have um, various ethnic backgrounds, or we got some Spanish speakers. Their eyes are opened. We brought them in for kind of a listening session, like, hey, how can you help us reach people of diverse backgrounds that might show up on a Sunday morning? So it's not super visible or necessarily super organized, but we are better, I think, better prepared to minister to as to non-English speakers or to people from, different uh, nationalities, uh, we can do that more effectively or at least more confidently than we've been able to do in the past. I think that's exciting. I think
Very good.
our neighborhood is going to continue to kind of go that way, and that's where God has called us. That's our Judea. So we want to reach the people God is bringing to us, not wishing we had a different set of folks, right? We want to reach
Yeah.
people where we're planted. So I'm excited about that.
Man, that's good stuff. Well, how can we be praying for you guys?
Well, uh, pray that we can, um, have the courage uh, to to keep pressing into some of these things, um, reaching our neighborhood, reaching every age group that comes with its inevitable um, stresses and strains. So pray that we don't get sidetracked with internal concerns, or that we don't lose really lose a passion for reaching people in our part of the city. I think that would be great if we can stay passionate about that. We can share that with others, and I think God's gonna bless that long term. So we don't want to lose that fire.
Amen. Amen. That's good. Well, I think it's been exciting to see, and I know that the people at Northside are excited to be a part of it. And so, man, keep up the good work. It's been great, and man, just praying for you guys and praying for what God has for you in the future. So,
Thanks. There's
good.
a
Yeah,
there's a north
amen.
side in just about every city, right?
That's right.
But there's no place like this north side. We're really grateful for what God's doing. So
Amen. Well, and Crossroads family, that's the thing is that, man, I know sometimes you can get so focused on maybe things aren't going exactly the way you wanted them to happen, but man, God is a faithful God, and He's doing great things around our city, and Northside is just one of those stories. So hang in there. If you can learn some things from what you've heard today, then and or if you want to know more and like to talk with Jeremy, I'm sure that he would love to share with you. And so, man, tune in next time, and we will see you then.
thanks, Chris.
You bet.